Luke and Ember Episode 3. The Meadow of Memories. The morning sun rose in soft, golden rays, lighting up the quiet meadow where wildflowers swayed in the breeze. Luke parked his car at the edge of the field and opened the door. Ember stretched gracefully, her paws reaching out as if to greet the earth. "Ready for an adventure?" Luke asked with a smile as Ember leapt from the car. The field had always been a peaceful place. For years, families had picnicked there, couples strolled hand in hand, and children ran barefoot through the grass. But it was also a place of quiet reflection, a place where memories lingered like the scent of wild blooms. Luke had packed a small picnic blanket and a basket. He spread it out near the tallest tree in the meadow, a sprawling oak that had stood for generations. Ember's nose twitched at the scent of flowers, and she began to explore the field, chasing a grasshopper as it bounced between the stalks. Luke watched her, resting his chin on his hands. "You're such a free spirit," he murmured. "But I guess that's what makes you special." Ember stopped suddenly, her ears perking up. She crouched low as if she'd spotted something, or someone. Luke followed her gaze and noticed a small, colorful kite stuck in the branches of the oak tree. Its tail fluttered in the wind, catching the sunlight. He walked over and reached up, tugging gently until the kite came free. The fabric was faded but still intact. "Looks like someone left a piece of their story behind," Luke said, turning it over in his hands. As he examined it, a faded name written in childish scrawl caught his eye, Ethan. Luke's heart clenched. It felt as though the universe had gently placed a memory in his hands. Ember patted over and rubbed her side against his leg. Her golden eyes seemed to ask, "Are you okay?" Luke knelt down, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'm okay," he whispered. "Just remembering." He set the kite down carefully and sat beneath the oak tree, pulling Ember onto his lap. She curled up, her warmth a comforting presence against his chest. As the breeze rustled the leaves above, Luke spoke softly. "This meadow, it feels like the kind of place Ethan would have loved. I can imagine him running through the flowers, laughing as his kite danced in the sky." Ember's ears flicked as if she could hear the echoes of that laughter. Luke reached into his bag and pulled out a small journal. It was filled with sketches and notes about their adventures, the river walks, the cabin trips, the nights under the stars. He flipped to a blank page and began to sketch the kite and the oak tree, his pencil moving with slow, deliberate strokes. Ember lay quietly, her breathing soft and even. Luke found solace in the act of creation, letting the memories flow onto the page. After a while, he placed the journal aside and closed his eyes, listening to the hum of life around them, the chirping of birds, the rustle of wildflowers, and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Time felt suspended in that quiet meadow. When Luke finally opened his eyes, the sun had climbed higher, casting golden light over everything. Ember stood, stretching again before padding toward the edge of the meadow. She stopped and looked back at Luke, her gaze beckoning. He stood, brushed the grass from his jeans, and picked up the kite. "All right, Ember. Let's give this story a happy ending." They walked to an open patch of grass, where the wind flowed freely. Luke tied the string back onto the kite, testing it to make sure it would fly. He smiled as he felt the breeze tug gently against the fabric. "Ready?" he asked. Ember sat patiently, watching as Luke ran forward, the kite lifting gracefully into the sky. It soared higher and higher until it was a tiny, colorful dot against the blue. Luke laughed, a sound full of freedom and joy. Ember's tail flicked in excitement as she bounded beside him. They ran together through the field, chasing the shadow of the kite as it danced overhead. As it fluttered and dipped, Luke imagined that somewhere beyond the sky, Ethan was watching, smiling at the sight of his old kite flying once again. The afternoon drifted by in peaceful moments. Eventually, the kite floated gently back down to earth, landing near the oak tree. Luke picked it up and ran his fingers over the faded fabric. "You've had quite the journey, haven't you?" he whispered. He tied the kite to a low branch of the oak, where it swayed in the breeze like a banner, a symbol of memories, hope, and resilience. Ember rubbed against his leg, her purr vibrating softly through the air. Luke knelt and gathered her in his arms, pressing a kiss to her head. "Thank you for bringing me here," he said. "Thank you for showing me that even old memories can be something beautiful." They sat beneath the oak until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Luke packed up their things, but before they left, he took one last look at the kite. It fluttered gently in the wind, catching the last rays of sunlight. Luke smiled and whispered, "You're free now." As they walked back to the car, Ember trotted ahead, her tail held high. The meadow rustled behind them, as if the flowers themselves were waving goodbye. Luke breathed in the scent of wild blooms and felt a quiet peace settle over him. At home, he opened his journal and added one final note beneath his sketch of the kite. Some stories never truly end. They just find new ways to keep flying. Ember curled up beside him as he closed the journal. They had come full circle, healing through memories, one step at a time. And as the stars began to appear in the night sky, Luke knew that they had written something unforgettable together, a story of love, loss, and the courage to find joy again.